Have you ever gotten home from a shoot and wished you would have captured something else that you didn't or captured something differently? Or have you ever questioned your ability to be a professional pet photographer or a professional equine photographer? If you have ever kind of had some questions about, your place in this industry, or if you're here, or if you have ever scrolled through social media and then kind of maybe felt a little bit not as great about yourself or your business, well, this podcast is for you. My friend Shelley Paulson is here, and we are talking all about this comparison game, how to get out of it, and how to just move on in a aligned business that we love while feeling good about it and serving our clients. Stay tuned. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Hair of the Dog podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Begley. And today I have one of my favorite people with me, Shelley Paulson from Shelley Paulson Photography. You might know her as really one of the OGs, one of the very best equine photographers on the planet. Shelley, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be back. I could say all of those things in reverse and do like pet photography.
No, stop it.
We'll
Stop
just
it.
have a mutual admiration club, just the two of us
I
for
love it.
all
That
time.
sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
I
Anytime
mean,
we feel bad, we just talk to each other.
perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
No, this is oh my gosh, this is so good. There are so many things to talk about today. So, for those of you guys who don't know Shelley, she is based in Minneapolis. And when did you start your equine photography business? How long have you been doing this?
2004 probably was the first
Okay.
time I got paid some amount of money to point a camera at a horse, and it wasn't pretty at all. Like, there was so much need for glow and selective coloring and all
Oh,
those things
nice.
that were super cool back then. Yeah, I had to cover up for crappy equipment, no understanding of light, and all the things. And but I managed to hang in there and build a business, and next year I'll be able to say it's 20 years, I think.
That's crazy. It has to feel like it's gone by in the blink of an eye, but at the same time that it's been such a long journey.
Yeah, really long. And it's funny to feel as like I don't feel old, but compared to most of the people in the industry, I'm like one of the old guard. But I'm also
Oh,
trying not to like be stuck in old ways or have my work be stale. Yeah, I mean, I've been in the industry a lot longer than most of the people in the industry, and I've seen a lot of people come and go along the way too, especially like because I was really involved in the wedding photography industry, and
mhm.
it's so interesting to have been in it for so long to see people have completely second careers after their wedding. Oh, now they're like an interior designer, or one person I knew, she's become an actress and she's acting in like local commercials and stuff. And I'm like, it's neat. I mean, I kind of feel sad because I love photography and I would never stop doing it. And so to me, it would be sad to give it up and quit. But then when I see people having fulfilling other careers, obviously
Mhm.
their photography wasn't doing it for them anymore. So
I've noticed a similar thing in the pet photography space, and I've only been in this industry since 2010. And yeah, there's students that have maybe come to our barcas or our workshops that are doing totally different things now. And again, that hopefully means that photography wasn't their thing and they are much happier where they are and they were just kind of testing the waters. And yeah, but I also wholeheartedly agree with you that I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is where I'm supposed to be." And I know that only because of all these other pieces that have become aligned in my life that aren't even necessarily directly photography, like my conservation fund and all these things. But without the photography piece, and without my zoo background and without this or that, like all those pieces would have never come together. And like I wake up every day and it's just like magical, even though some days I'm like, oh my God, how much do I have to do? Why am I doing this? Oh, what decisions have I made in life?
yeah, what do I
I
need to
still love
say
it.
no to? And then when things get slow, I'm like, oh my gosh, things are slow.
Well, I need to say yes to all the things. Oh my
Yeah.
God, more stuff.
No, but I
But
feel
yeah,
you there.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
feel you there on the just feeling a sense of purpose, feeling a sense of this is where I'm meant to be, and not that it's easy every day. In fact, it's
Yeah.
not easy a lot of days, but knowing that this is where you're supposed to be makes those days okay. It makes them tolerable because you're like, okay,
Mhm.
tomorrow something really awesome could land in my inbox and change my whole mindset about this.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, what you were saying before too about, well, actually, this leads into really what we want to talk about today. And so, how this particular conversation came about is we were both down in Florida catching some Florida sunshine. And I've gone down for the past 2 years with a good friend of mine from Pittsburgh. We just go down to hang out around Wellington with all the fancy horses for the Winter Equestrian Festival and enjoy a nice, lovely, sunshine, horse filled weekend. And you just happened to be there the past 2 years, which has been awesome. So we got together at Eye Candy Jumpers, which is one of your clients and the reason that you make your winter trip. And oh my God, Shelley, I just got to say, like, I thought going to the horse show was horse heaven. As soon as we pulled into this amazing place, I'm like, "Oh my god, I need to come back next year and photograph with my camera to photograph." She has 2 Great Pyrenees in this massive driveway, which is like this driveway to their whole, like, gated equestrian community. Oh my gosh, it's just unbelievable. So, that whole day as my jaw is dragging on the ground and I'm drooling over all the amazing horses and the beautiful property and the amazing Florida color and the gorgeous sunshine, we had some conversations
Yeah.
and we realized that we needed to create this podcast because if we are having these conversations, we being the ones that we both just introduced each other, even though we don't feel adequate for those introductions, um, I guarantee you almost every other photographer on the planet that is listening to this has struggled or is struggling with similar things, which is, gosh, these questions of am I relevant? Am I good enough? And what am I doing here?
Am I an imposter?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, they're going to find out. Someone's going to find out that, I'm just trying to
Winging
make
it.
this happen.
Yep, I'm
Yeah.
winging it. Yep.
And and so you guys, like, let that sink in for a minute, cuz I I'm just a person here. Shelly's just a person. I had this big time. I'm speaking at my friend Kaylee's Shutterhound conference in September. And I look at my picture amongst these people that she has put together to speak at this conference. And I'm like, one of these things is not like the others.
I went and
And
looked at the page. I loved that it just says Nicole. It doesn't even say your last name.
what
Like,
does it?
everyone should just know it's just Nicole. You're now like Madonna. Like, you only need a first name.
I
If
love
you
it. I'm going to change it to a symbol next.
Yeah,
Perfect.
like a dog paw.
I love it. I love it. It'll
Yeah.
be like Cammy's little ear. Oh my gosh. So anyway, I mean, this is just a pretty common state and emotion to feel. I think whenever we're doing something that is so incredibly tied to be so personal is creating art and putting it out there. Like, it's not like we're creating a widget. It's not like I'm an accountant, like just doing numbers for somebody and I'm like, okay, here's your taxes. That is like a personal reflection of me. And if you're upset about it, then it's gonna like question my whole entire worthiness of life. like
And
like
you're
there's
not
so much emotion in this.
Yeah, and you're not looking at the other accountants seeing how they are doing taxes.
Right. Right.
Like, I think
Uh-huh.
the comparison thing,
Mhm.
before social media, it was really hard to compare yourself with somebody else. Maybe you walk down and see the studio down the street or
Right.
something, but or look in a wedding magazine and see what some other wedding photographer was doing. I mean, pet and equine photography were hardly a thing, but there was no comparison like all day, every day. Every time you log into social media,
Mhm.
you're like, why am I not doing that? And why is this person, creating these amazing images and I'm not? Like, oh, am I good enough if I'm not creating images like, this person, or this person
Mhm.
travels more than me? That's the thing that gets in my head. I want to be home. I want to be here in my office with my dogs and my horses. But then when I see other people traveling, because I love travel, I go, I need to plan a trip. And it's like,
Yeah.
I can't do both things. I can't be here and travel all
This
the
is this
time.
is a very real value conflict because before getting my horses, I'd be like, "Whatever, I can be on the road all the time. Never need to be home." Now I'm like, "Well, I don't wanna be away for more than, like, a week because, like, I gotta get back to my boy."
Yeah. Yeah, and imagine then if they lived in your backyard and, like
I know.
yeah,
I
then you're
already leave, like, a list that's, like, 5,000 miles long for the poor souls that help me take care of my horses. I'm like, "His feet need this because otherwise they get really thrushy and the this, and then if it's wet, you need this, but if it's dry, we use this." And then I'm like, "Oh my god, I didn't leave this many instructions for my children when they were babies." Like, "Whatever, keep them alive. They need some food."
feed them once in a while, let 'em
Yeah,
take them to the
right.
bathroom,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh my god, struggle is real, and I know all of you guys listening out there, the same thing with your dogs.
Yeah.
Cami has a list too. Like, she likes this, she doesn't
Oh,
like
yeah.
this, blah, blah, blah. She goes out for a potty break at exactly 5:30. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, they will survive. Oh,
They
yeah.
will. But yeah,
Anyway,
when I went to
yeah,
Florida, it was 2 very long lists. It was the horse list
right.
and the dog list because my
Yes.
husband was working days when we had to have people come in and take care of the dogs, and yeah, and so, like, for me to leave and go on a trip is becoming increasingly more challenging as I add animals to my life, and
Right.
so I might look at, this other photographer who travels all the time, and that seems so glamorous, and they get such cool pictures because they go cool places,
Mhm.
and the comparison kicks in, and I'm like, "Oh, am I not gonna appear as successful if I'm not traveling
Mhm.
all the time and if I'm just sitting here in Minnesota taking pictures?" And so, it's so funny that sometimes we're comparing ourselves and the thing doesn't even line up with our values.
Yes, that is huge because I we just jump to that comparison game first and we think we want it
Mhm.
because we're like, well, am I supposed to want this too? It
Yeah,
becomes one of those things of, what does society say we should want? What do we think people will think that is successful? And just a general case of we see something and then our brain's like, oh, well, that could be fun too. Maybe I should want that. And I
yeah,
think one of the most important things that people need to do, which is hard, but that is to really sit down and define what success looks like for you, for your business, for your life, what you actually want to be doing. Do you want to be traveling? Do you want to be home? Like, there's no right or wrong answer here, but it's so easy to get swept up in that comparison game. And you're right, we are inundated with it.
yeah.
Like, in your face, whether you like it or not, we need to figure out how the heck to deal with it.
Yeah, like, almost how to create this bubble, and I think you're right about, like, being really clear on our values and
Mhm.
finding that intrinsic value that says, you know, if I'm just sitting here and doing my thing, is that good enough? Do I have
Right.
to have some massive external success in order to feel worthy? And yeah, I also think once you hit a certain measure of success and excitement, you feel like you have to keep topping that. Like
Yes.
I went
Uh-huh.
to Iceland and I had this amazing experience and came back with a calendar full of photos and, lots of great things to post on social media. And I've been looking at my summer going, wah, wah. I have nothing to look forward to. Nothing cool coming up. And then, like I said earlier, something dropped in my inbox on Monday that is supremely cool that somebody's inviting me to do, and I'm excited and it's my trip. But like before that, I was like, do I need to manufacture something? Do I
Right.
need some epic trip every summer in order to feel like I have value or worth or that like I'm at the top of this industry? Like, can I be at the top of this industry and just hang out at home?
Well, and the question for that too with the do I need a trip every summer is the reason that you think that you need that trip every summer purely so that you can feel like you are being successful or relevant or whatever you want to call it? Or is that reason for wanting that trip each summer because it's something that truly fuels your soul and passion?
Yeah.
And, it could be a little bit of both,
Yeah.
but I think it's really important to ask ourselves these hard questions of like, all right, why do I want to do this right now? Is
Mhm.
this really truly aligned with my greater purpose and goals? Or is this a knee jerk reaction to
Seems
these other
yeah.
things?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, totally, and it's these challenges didn't exist before social media, you know?
Right?
It's like because, yeah, there's things that trigger you to be like, "Oh gosh, I should be thinking about that." Whereas, like, if it really came down to, like, what are my values? You know, my values are helping other photographers and making a comfortable living for myself and my husband and my animals, and we just
Mhm.
finished remodeling our house, and it was super expensive, and I just wanna be here enjoying it. Like,
Right.
I don't really care to leave at this point. Now I've got a really nice house, you know, whereas before it was pretty outdated, and I've got a really nice house. I have beautiful, lovely horses. I have an arena to ride in. I have a nice trailer to take them places. Like, when I really sit down and pull back from all the social media, I don't need to be on the road all the time. I don't want to be, and I'm
Mhm.
making the kind of money that I want to make that and I don't have to go anywhere
Yeah.
necessarily,
Yeah.
you know, and so, yeah, I think it really does come down to your values, but I also think I think a lot of that is we need to work on mindset, and not just a money mindset, but I've been thinking so much lately about just the mind-body connection, the
Mhm.
even the mindset when we're going into a photo session itself. Like, I feel like so many people are talking about money mindset these days, but they're not talking about that mindset when you're just right when you're behind the camera, you're on your way to a session. And because that was something we talked about too that day of just like sometimes I still feel like chaos is going on in my brain before I do a photo shoot.
I feel like chaos is going on in my brain 99% of the time.
Right?
Like, let's be real.
Let's be real. Yes, it is chaos.
It is. Yeah, no, I love this, and, oh gosh, it makes such a big difference, and I try to get in the habit too of even before I record this podcast, before I write an email, before I, like, do a social post, before I do anything in my business, of trying again, this is a practice, I'm not saying I do this well or as often as I would like, but I try to get into the, "Alright, why am I doing this? What is the effect that I wanna have happen here?" So, like,
Mm.
what do we by us sitting here and recording this podcast, like, what effect do we wanna have on the people that are listening right now? When I'm putting together a marketing strategy for my business, what effect do I wanna have? And it's not just about, like, "I wanna book more clients." No, like, what do I actually want to give them? What do I want my clients to feel afterwards? Can I connect with that? Which I think allows us to get a lot more clarity around what we want to say, how we want to say it, what we actually want to do in the situation. And I think that helps shield us from that comparison game because we're connected to a much bigger why and alignment than the reactionary, "Oh, I should be doing this."
Yeah. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think too, it gets you outside of yourself.
Mhm.
A book that
Yeah.
I read recently that I just adored, and it's super short, and it's actually like a parable kind of book, and it's called The Go-Giver. Have you ever read it?
I have not. It's on my little giant about to crush me with all the books I need to read shelf.
It's an easy read. It's an easy read. I did it as an audiobook, but it's basically about how the more you give and the more you get outside of yourself and think of others, the more naturally comes back to you. And I think a
Mhm.
lot of this like comparison and chaos and mindset, you know, messy mindset stuff
Mhm.
comes from too much inward focus or self
Mhm.
focus. We're thinking about ourselves. And I think, like, if you're going into a session and you're thinking, am I going to get good enough photos for social media? Am I going to get good enough
Mhm.
photos for my portfolio? Am I, you know, and you're thinking about your benefit and getting back to what you said, if you can start thinking about your client and their benefit, you know,
Mhm.
because I've heard people say, "Oh, well, I don't wanna use the same poses or the same locations that I used for other clients," and I'm like, "Your new client doesn't have any of those things. It's totally
Mhm.
okay to repeat how you even if it's the same barn that, you know, you did 4 other sessions at, it's totally fine to use the same spots. They don't have those photos." But I know
Mhm.
that the photographer is thinking, "Well, I wanna create something different." You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And something just clicked when you said that too. When you're focused on, like, you're going into a session and your focus is even so much as like, I hope my client's going to love these photos. Like, you're worried that you're not going to be able to create something they love. If you can just switch that around to, I am going to create something they love. You're just like, let me, and just looking at it from like, how am I going to create the most beautiful images for what I have right here in front of me for them, and not worry about, is it going to be as good as the other person you photographed at that location? Is it going to be good enough for your social media? Is this going to be a portfolio shot? No, don't think about any of that.
Yes.
Just focus on the person and the animal you have in front of you, and come at it from like, I am here to serve this person and to create something amazing that they will treasure for the rest of their life. How can I do that to my best of the abilities with what we have with us right now? And gosh, that becomes a lot less stressful.
It really does. And this gets back to this kind of mindset stuff that I've been kind of deep diving into a horse trainer by the name of Warwick Schiller. Have you ever read or
I have
watched
not.
any? Okay, so he has a great podcast called Journey On, and he's getting really kind of out there with kind of the mind, body, spirit connection and how that applies to horses and horse training. And he has all these really interesting guests on, and of course while I'm listening to it I'm thinking, oh, this is applicable for photographers.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
especially photographers, horse photographers, but I know this applies to dogs too. But like, I also think when we're bringing all that nervous energy into
Hmm.
a session, we're making our clients nervous. We're also making the horses nervous. And so, because they can feel that, like, how we feel isn't limited to our own body. How we feel goes out from our body. And when you, horses are prey animals, so they're exceedingly sensitive to energy. And if you go into a session nervous, I guarantee you that horse is going to be like, why are we all nervous? Because you're making the
Right.
client nervous, you're making the horse nervous, and the horse is like, this is not fun. And,
Hmm.
so I'm starting to really think about, how do we bring ourselves into a place mentally, spiritually, before a session where we kind of have a neutral or a positive mindset, a positive energy that we bring into a session. And I am just about to launch an app for equestrian photographers, and a whole
I'm
section of
so excited for this.
a whole section of this app is affirmations. And let me read some of the affirmations to you, because, and now I have this idea after listening to a bunch of these podcasts, that I'm going to actually do an audio version where I will do like a guided meditation that people can listen
Mm.
to on the way to a session, so that they can like get into this place. And the funny part was, when I was creating these affirmations, when I was done, I felt so good. And I was like,
Funny
can't
how that works.
I can't explain it, but this is real stuff. This really works. Okay, so
Uh,
first screen. I am good enough, and my work is worth putting out into the world. There is no limit to creativity. There is enough for me. My creativity flows effortlessly and abundantly. I am skilled at capturing beautiful images. I believe in myself and the work I create. I trust my artistic vision and follow my instincts. Not all my photos are perfect, but they are meaningful for my clients. And so there's 18 of those, or 17 right now. I actually making notes to make more, because
yeah, right.
when I read things, I'm like, oh, that would be a really good affirmation.
Uh-huh.
But I just feel like if a person could take a few moments and, you know, remind themselves that they're okay, that who this is about, what is this about, I feel like there would be so much less chaos and a much
Mhm.
calmer mindset, and just be able to go into the session and be able to think. And,
Yes.
because I know a lot of us go into like photo shoots, and it's so much with animals, like it's trying to get the light and then the location and then the pose, and just when you have it all set, the animal moves out of it. And you're like,
Right.
and it
Do it
just,
again.
it just feels like chaos, and I'm like, "How can we lower the chaos? How can we bring ourselves into a better place before we start so that we have better results?" I am convinced that I'll have better results because of this.
Oh, 100%. I definitely agree. I mean, it's impossible not to when you can come and approach it from a place of more calm.
Mhm.
I think one of the biggest things that I struggled with for my first several years, and sometimes it still even creeps up where I find myself like rushing through a session because I have this subconscious belief, or probably, I guess, conscious belief, that if I slow down, they're going to realize I'm just, like, winging it and looking around for what my next shot is, like, I don't have it all planned out because you can't even if you're shooting at the same location, the light's gonna be different, the season's gonna be different, the sun's gonna be different because it's a different season, it's different part of the sky, like, literally no 2 sessions are alike, so I had this belief that if I showed up to a session and I was like taking a minute to look around and make a plan and check out the light here, and I didn't know exactly what I was doing, like right now, then the client would realize that, oh, you have no idea what you're doing. And I can't believe I'm paying all this money for you to like figure out where we're going to shoot when I mean, this is just normal brain, like, looking because it's different,
Yeah,
and, by the way, the dog probably appreciates a little break, as does the client, and it's perfectly okay to say, "Hey, I'm gonna go scope out the light over there real quick. You guys just hang out for a second. I'll be right back." Like, no one's mad at you if you say that and you just need a minute to go collect yourself to carry on with the session.
and I have heard so many people express that, like, going through
Yeah.
that whole thing of, like, and they rush from location to location
Uh-huh.
because they feel like if there's any empty space, it makes them look incompetent. Uh,
Yes. Yep.
yeah, when I was just starting out as a wedding photographer, I had a critique of, an engagement session, and this is some of the best advice I got in my entire career. The person looked at it at my photo shoot as a whole, like a gallery, and said, "You're moving on too quickly. You're moving from location to location to location
Mm.
too quickly. You're never letting the couple have a chance to settle in with each other." And I was like, "Ah, yeah."
Ah. Uh-huh.
And so, horses and people are kinda like couples.
Yeah, same with dogs.
Same with
I'm thinking the same thing with the dog photography session because usually towards the end, when you think you're done shooting is when the real interaction happens and when
Mhm.
it's like, "Oh, I want to capture that."
Yeah. Yeah, and knowing, like, when to slow down, step back, and disengage from directing so that those
Mhm,
moments happen, and balance that
mhm.
out with directing, because that's another thing I've experienced and heard and seen with other photographers is if you're not giving enough direction, then
Right.
that also makes the client feel really insecure, but if you're giving direction constantly, then you're never giving that chance to settle in, so that's a hard thing to balance of just, but that's why you need to stay in one place because you can give them the direction, kind of get everything established, and then pull back a little bit and give them a moment. And then I
Mhm.
think like some really sweet magic and moments can happen.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that, and that is so accurate. Oh my gosh.
But it is
Um,
it is funny because I didn't realize how chaotic my mind still is at sessions and
mm,
at when I go do photo shoots. But, like, when when somebody asked me about it recently, and then I was at a photo shoot and I was like, "Yeah, like, I'm winging it." Like, there are times when I am purely just winging the crap out of it because I am just
mhm,
like, and I thought I was past that, but it wasn't until I, like, actually pulled back and became conscious of it that I realized yeah, no, I still have those moments, especially, like, down in Wellington, let's talk about that, like,
yeah,
I'm not a horse show photographer, I am not a show jumping photographer, I don't spend the whole season down there. I go down there and there's, literally like 60 full-time private photographers milling around all the places of WEF. And I'm just like, I feel like an imposter. I'm 20
Right.
years into this. I've been published in major magazines. I've won awards. And I'm just standing there going, my lens isn't as long as hers. Why are they all standing there? Maybe I should be standing there. And my person comes into the arena and I'm just like, where's
Oh
my
my god.
focus point? Oh my God. Oh, oh shoot, my camera focused on the jump and not the rider. And I'm just like, oh gosh, this is just like back to 2006 or whatever.
Right. You're like, "Settle down."
Settle
Yeah,
down.
I think that's really easy to our brain to push into that, like, overwhelmed, just, like, terrified. It's like a frantic energy, and I think that can come from 2 different things. Number 1, having the level of, like, this is all happening, like, your rider's in the ring, I have 90 seconds to get these shots, and, "Oh my god, I'm messing this up." As well as a when you're maybe at a place that has challenging lighting or the location is not inspiring and you're just like, "What am I gonna do with this session here?" Versus there might also be times where you're at a session where your head is exploding with the possibilities because 'cause you're like, "Everywhere I turn is so beautiful, I can't even freaking handle it, and there's no way I could capture all of this, and what am I gonna do? And, oh my god, I better get started." And, yeah, it just like that I think is another there's like
Oh
those 2
yeah.
different levels, but they both cause a similar energy. One is, like, super excited and one is really nervous, but it's still this frantic energy that you can't then really focus.
That is how I felt in Iceland.
Yeah, yes, yeah. Iceland will do that to you because
Especially because we
everywhere you
had
look,
like
it is beautiful.
everywhere you look it's beautiful, and there were we these photo shoots were set up for us, and there were probably 30 to 50, I don't know how to judge, probably 30
Yeah,
horses, maybe 40. And I was like, do I zoom in? Do I zoom out? Do I zoom in? Do I zoom out? Like, do I want the whole herd? Do I want a close up? And it was like kid in a candy store, and
uh-huh.
like you don't get a second shot at it, which is another whole like
Right?
nerve-wracking thing is like, this
Mhm.
is it. This is the river crossing. We're not
Like,
going
do
to
it,
do
do
another
it,
one.
yeah.
I can't. I almost wish I could have had two cameras stacked on each other, one with a wide lens and one with a zoom lens, and I could have been simultaneously shooting. I mean, I did that kind
Right.
of with the GoPro, but that's not like quality photos. And so yeah, that was I had two cameras, one with a long lens, one with a short lens, and I just kept like throwing one down, picking one up, throwing one down, picking one up, and just yeah, it was. And then afterwards, you have all those regrets of like, oh, there I really should have
Oh.
got blah blah blah, and then it's gone. I'm 5.
That's a great point. I don't think I have ever, ever left a session without a, "Oh, I wish I did that too."
Yeah,
Ah,
regrets.
like, I don't think I ever left a session and said, "I got every single thing I wanted, and I couldn't have done any of that better." Like, never.
And I mean, in some ways I can process regrets as it's a stepping stone to the next time, and I'm like, "Oh,"
Mhm.
especially when I'm looking at the photos afterwards. I usually don't
Oh,
have
yeah.
regrets in the moment as much as I do when I'm editing and I'm like, "Oh, if I had just seen that foot in that spot," or
Right,
whatever, like,
right.
"This is a perfect photo, except that one foot is in the wrong place," or whatever.
If we just
Um,
shifted this all right here. Yeah,
yeah, if I had
100%.
just pulled them out from the background more, whatever. But then, like, the deeper the regret, the less likely I am to repeat that mistake in the
Mhm.
future. And so I'm kind of like an overthinker kind of, although I hate that term because I'm like, what's the right amount of thinking? But I know
Right, right,
I'll,
right.
I'll call it heavy thinker. I'm a heavy thinker. And so I do a lot of like retrospection and
Uh-huh.
introspection when I'm reviewing my images afterwards. And a lot of like, okay, how could I have made that better? And that can be super paralyzing to people.
Mhm.
But if you can, again, mindset, turn it around to, okay, well, next time I'm going to do something different. Like I do plan to return to Iceland, and
Yeah, right, right.
it won't be quite the epic experience, probably, or I'll have to set up my own photo shoots or whatever. But I'll have another chance to try things that I kind of wished I'd have done in the first place.
Yeah, I think that's the key is when you are looking at it and you're looking at it as an opportunity to, okay, what can I take away for future to learn from this? Versus looking at it from a comparison or a belief that, well, because I get this a lot from my students, especially those just starting out, that they think if they leave the session with these like, "Oh, I wish I did that," or "I wish I did that," that they're like thinking that maybe they're not cut out for this, or this isn't, that people shouldn't have this, or like, professional photographer, if I really knew what I was doing, I would be able to get through this without having these thoughts or these regrets of, not capturing everything that I wanted. But that's just not true. And then when you can take it and actually look at it, then that's a great way to improve, which is similar to asking for constructive critique. You
Mhm.
know, I I I feel like there's a lot of people that maybe say, "Oh, I want some feedback," but they don't actually want the feedback. They want just a little ego boost, which there's a right and wrong way to give feedback. I mean, we should never give feedback of like, "Hey, it works terrible. Good luck. You suck." Like,
Yeah, why are you
no.
bothering?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like, that's not good feedback. If someone's giving you feedback like that, don't listen to it. Move on. But if you've asked for feedback and someone's like, "Hey, I love the expression in this photo, but you could improve it with XYZ," don't get defensive about that. Like,
Yeah.
take that as and you don't have to take any, because art is still subjective. So if they're giving you advice that you're like, no, but I really like how I did it this way, that's fine. It's your art. You don't have to take everything everyone says. But if you can be open to when people give you feedback like that, it can help you grow. But you just have to make sure that you're not allowing it to like just dive bomb your mental state into a place of, I suck. Why am I doing this?
Yeah, and I think I 100% agree. I The biggest jumps in skill for me in my career have been after a critique. Like a good
Mhm.
in-depth,
Mhm.
hardcore critique. I actually have somebody in mind, a commercial photography coach that I would like to do a critique for me once I get my portfolio updated because I'm like craving that. I'm like, okay, I know what I
Yeah.
know. What don't I know? But I'm a sensitive soul, so I know that I understand how critique can be crushing if you don't go into it with the right m state of mind. Like, if you go into
Mhm.
it with, "I'm trying to figure out if I'm gonna be validated here," versus, "I
Right?
want to learn from I wanna know what I don't know." And that's the thing critique gives you is you know what you don't know. I just wrapping up my Wings mentorship, which is more of a skills-based equestrian photography mentorship, and a huge part of it is I teach them a topic, then they go do homework and they submit their homework and I go through and I comment on every photo. And I'm starting to get feedback forms come in and every single person is like, "It was the homework. It was the homework and the feedback on the homework."
Mhm.
And I had some people who were fairly experienced in this year's group and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that I wasn't paying attention to my backgrounds at all." Like, she's been doing this for, I don't know, 6, 7 years, and she's like, "I just always just only looked at my subject, really." And I'm just like, how cool for to have a person it's the person you met in Wellington and just a sponge to
Mhm.
learn, took all the feedback in, and is now going to, I believe, really skyrocket as a photographer because she was
Mhm.
good to begin with, and she has a good
Yep.
heart, and it's like, you just don't know what you don't know. But like you said, you have to be able to take it in and not take it into like an emotional place inside of you, but just as a like, these are some facts and this is how I can grow, and to be able to be excited about it instead of dread it or feel crushed by
Mhm.
it, I think is the key.
Yeah, and I think you can approach it too as with a lot of things. Like, "Hey, can I just try this on?" Like, can I try on my next shoot to be more cognizant of my backgrounds and see if I like the results? Like, you
Mhm.
don't have to be married to it and do it forever, but can you test it? I'm actually doing that right now. Heather and I are going to record a podcast here in the next couple weeks of a new way of time management for my life, for my day to
Ooh,
day work, of
yeah.
basically like scheduling out the whole day, of
Oh,
no
yeah.
longer, it used to be like I'd put on my calls and then I'd have a list of things that I wanted to get done during that week and I'd try to slot it in. Well, guess what? Surprise, found out that those things weren't always getting done. So
Yeah.
instead, now it's all right, here's the stuff that I'm already committed to. here's the stuff that needs to happen this week, getting time on the calendar and then
Mhm,
slotting in those other little things. And as things pop up during the week, this is the process that I'm kind of testing. But I'm like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to try it on. No one says that I need to like live like this for the rest of my life, but can I try this on? Can I see if there's something that is beneficial in the strategy
mhm.
for me? Because it works for a lot of people who's saying that it wouldn't work for me too. And maybe I have to adjust it. So I think you can approach, gosh, a lot of things in our life and our business and our craft with that same thought of,
Experiment.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
an experiment. Let's just test it out.
yeah,
Let's see. Let's see what happens.
yeah, and is it so it's time blocking that you're doing?
Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah. So it's my whole day is boom,
yeah,
basically from like 8 in the morning till 8 at night, and I put in, barn
horse time.
time or just,
Yep,
like, downtime, family time, walking
yep,
the dog because I would find myself sitting here like, "I should take the dog for a walk. Oh, but I'm gonna get this done." And so
yeah.
if it's on my calendar, I'm like, "Oh, it's time,"
Oh, it's
and
done,
it's
yeah.
just something that short circuits my brain,
Mhm.
to, like, "Well, I just need to do this." And, like,
Yeah.
for instance, this morning, I had to review contracts. That would have been pushed
Exciting.
down, and I knew it had to be first thing because if I try to do that at 4 o'clock, that's just not happening.
No.
But, I'm like, "It's on my calendar, it's half an hour, let's just do it." Got it
Yeah,
done, it was easier than I thought, like but it had to get done. Someone has to do this, and it has to be me.
yeah.
So,
I
yeah,
could
just
do I could
it's been
do
huge.
a whole podcast with you on time blocking because I am a huge
Ooh,
fan. I do it, but I the thing about time blocking for me, the flexibility of it is some
uh-huh,
weeks it doesn't happen, some weeks it happens, some weeks it's the full day, some weeks it's just
yeah,
certain parts of the day, but I am a big believer in it
yeah,
because and this might be all off topic, but the to-do list, we tend to go whatever's the easiest. And time
100%,
yeah, and time
uh-huh,
blocking lets us schedule the hard things during the best part of the day, which for most of us is the
mhm,
morning. And then, like I like to edit in the afternoons because I don't really
mhm,
need much of a brain, but anything I'm writing or, estimates, bids, the feedback I was giving in the course, like that's all got to be
mhm,
early because my brain is spent, especially because I'm
mhm,
focused in the morning. My brain is like
mhm.
spent by the afternoon. But yeah, no, we're probably veering off topic, but it's something I'm very
Oh,
passionate
yeah.
about.
Alright, we'll have to bring you back for the time blocking talk 'cause
Yeah.
I love some productivity.
Yep, me too. Efficiency and productivity. Give me some
Oh
more.
my goodness. Oh, well, yeah, I again, totally off topic,
Yeah.
but I, found another little use for ChatGPT, which I have, a Monday board, which is like, Airtable or Excel on steroids, and I track, income weekly and, like, some other things. So I have this, the first line in it is the date, like, to 2023-03-26, like, each week for the year and split into quarter groups. I just went ChatGPT and I'm like, "Hey, write me a list with one date on each line of every Sunday in quarter 2 written in this format." Boom, copy, paste. I'm like,
No.
"Oh,
Oh my god.
yes."
I
Saves
know.
so much time because before I was just doing a couple weeks at a time and typing it in. I'm like, "Oh, I need to start thinking of, like, everything that I'm doing in my business, can I run something through ChatGPT to format it or make it faster?" And, often you can.
I actually named my app using ChatGPT.
It's great for brainstorming. I've
It
used it for
is.
brainstorming quite a bit too, because 'cause you're like, more, more.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Ex
let's explore on this one."
that
And
one,
you're
yeah.
still driving it. So, oh my gosh, this is gonna get into a whole conversation about,
Yeah.
like, AI. And, I don't think it will replace people. Even when it kicks off really good, like, copy for me, like, I still tweak it. I still have to put in
Mhm,
my voice.
mhm.
But to use it for the brainstorming, content
Yes.
creation brainstorming, naming brainstorming, formatting things. I mean, I'm
Yes.
just starting to scratch the surface of what it can be used for. Um, so that productivity just made me think of all
Yeah, no,
that.
I'm with you there. Yeah, I literally put in, "Come up with a name for an app for equestrian photographers." The first one was a fail, I hit regenerate, and the second one is the name of my app.
Oh, I love it. Wow. I usually do give me 10 names
Oh,
for,
that's better,
yeah.
yeah, then I
So
would've
then I could be like, "Oh, I like 3, 5, and 7. Give me more like that." So you keep
Oh,
getting.
See,
deeper.
your advanced skills, yeah, I could have a whole conversation about AI too, because I'm especially on the image side, I thought I had a stance on that until Midjourney 5 came out, and now I'm shrinking back a little bit from my,
Oh,
"Oh, it won't replace us" mentality. I'm a little worried.
wow. Yeah,
Yep.
no, I it's gonna be interesting for sure. I can definitely see an incredible business opportunity for equine and pet photographers with AI generated portraiture to create a wall gallery, like, with some stuff from their current living animals and then bringing in some
Oh,
photos, creating beautiful artwork that matches the artwork you're creating. You're still printing it in your beautiful vendors, creating this like exquisite art, but with their animals that have passed. I'm like,
wow, yeah.
that could be incredible. And,
Yeah.
so there's
Well, and
lots of
that's why I'm, like,
things out there.
not running away from it. I'm trying to
Yeah.
be a user and keep
Mhm.
experimenting, and I follow some people on Twitter who are, like, sharing guides on Midjourney prompts, and, because 'cause I'm like,
Yeah.
you can't just stuff your head in the sand and hope
Yeah,
it
right.
doesn't get
Yeah.
bad, because where I think it could hurt my business is in the stock photography realm. Once it gets
Mhm.
good, like, an editor could say, "Oh, photo of a horse grazing in a pasture,"
Yeah.
whatever, and get an image that they could use in their magazine, and they hardly have to pay anything for that, and
Right, right.
right now, the horses
Yeah.
still look really weird, but that's not gonna last.
Yeah, I know, we'll get smart at some point for
Yeah.
sure.
Anyway,
Yeah,
back to
it's
our
crazy.
topic.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that devolved, it usually does. Anyway, this has been so, so good. So let's recap here. If you are feeling like an imposter, you're not alone. If you are questioning all your life choices after looking at social media, you are not alone. Um, affirmations are amazing. Like, what advice do you have to kind of bring this all together for people out there? Or do you have any, actually, how about this? Do you have any strategies that you use to kind of limit that exposure to social media? Because that can be just generally with all these things, I like to look at it as, okay, I just did something. Do I feel better or do I feel worse?
Yeah, I love
So,
that.
like, you can look at, like, maybe me looking, one of my favorite things to do, especially when I'm in Florida, is my mom and I like to go to, like, the Parade of Homes and look in these, like, multi-million dollar, amazing, gorgeous homes. Like, I love it. And when I leave that, I feel good. I'm like, "That's amazing," even though I'm in no position to buy one at the moment, and I don't even know that I ever would because I like to travel so much, so I don't know that I would ever wanna pay the taxes on a giant house like that if I'm not using it all the time. So, but when I look at those types of things, it lifts me up, it makes me feel good, I see the possibility, and I just love to see how those spaces are used and how they're decorated. Where maybe then you're, on social media and somebody maybe stuff keeps coming up or there's this and then you feel worse.
Mhm.
Okay, maybe we need to not do those things that make you feel worse and instead focus on the things that make you feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have some things that I do. I try super duper hard not to be on social media 1 day a week, and I pick Sundays. It's
Mm.
just like,
Mhm.
leave my phone, check it once in a while, make sure no one's died or anything,
Right. No
Um,
fires.
yeah, sometimes I'll check in Sunday night just to make sure. Like, the worst thing right now is the stupid spammers that tag all your commenters, and, so
Mm.
being away from social media for an entire day, I could have people really harassing my followers, which I don't like, but I
Right.
don't allow myself the scroll, the doom scrolling.
Mm. Mhm.
If there's somebody whose stuff on a consistent basis leaves me feeling that way, I love that you said that, because I have that same kind of mindset. I'll mute them,
Mhm.
and I don't unfollow because I feel like that's really hostile. If they're a personal friend, hopefully their posts don't make me feel that way. I don't mute people that I know in real life, but, I'll keep somebody in my feed for a while and just see how their posts make me feel, or if I just
Mhm.
don't engage, they'll kind of fall off anyway. I have the only notifications coming to my phone are texts and phone calls.
Yeah.
And so that's a
Mhm.
big thing. I'm with people sometimes and I see their Instagram notifications popping up constantly on their home screen. And I'm like, that would absolutely drive me nuts. Like, I wouldn't be
Mhm.
able to handle that. And I wouldn't be able to focus on my work either. And so I like to use the Facebook business suite, the Meta business suite,
Mhm.
to monitor both my social feeds, my Facebook and Instagram, because that keeps me from actually going onto Facebook and Instagram and seeing a lot, like just that suck into those things.
Yes.
And so I go there and I see who's commenting on my stuff. I reply to their comments. It's tough though, because like with Instagram, if you're not engaging with other people, then your stuff gets throttled. And that's, we
Right.
could get into a whole thing of why then you need an email newsletter, because I just think depending on social media so heavily for marketing and whatever kind of puts you into this kind of loop of having to be there,
Mhm.
and I think just removing that is so good. I
Mhm.
did a 30-day detox once where I got off social media for 30 days and I was like a different person at the end of 30 days. And
Wow.
I run my mentorships have Facebook group elements, which, you've gotten away from that, which it has been on my mind if that's possible. So it makes it harder for me to do a full detox, but I'm always trying to figure out how to balance social media in my life because it does often leave me feeling like I'm not
I
enough or I'm not doing enough or I should be doing more. And then, a gratitude practice. Like
mm.
this remodel's been hard. It's really hard to pick all the finishings and hope everything comes together. I mean, we had a designer helping us, but still, like at one point I was obsessing about the door handles on the cabinets because I didn't think I liked them. And I literally was like losing sleep at night over these stupid handles. And I'm like, I am not this obsessive. But I walked into the, still in process kitchen one day and I'm like, I love the counters. I love the floors. I'm so grateful that this is one room now instead of three because we knocked down a wall and I just reminded myself of all the good things and and then the handles did not matter anymore. Like
Mhm.
and so I also think that stopping when you get into that, like, oh, why am I even bothering? What's the point? I suck. I'm not as good as so and so. Going, I am grateful that I get to create beautiful memories for people and beautiful experiences for people. And there's just so many things we can be grateful for that gratitude, it's like a mental pill you can take
Mhm.
that literally like changes I mean, I don't know if there's a chemical change. It's probably a dopamine thing, right?
Mhm. Yeah, no,
Um,
I think it truly does rewire your brain.
yeah,
And it is the quickest short circuit from feeling like crap to feeling great. And just to have that immediate, like, I always tell people too, like, if you feel bad, just, like, sit down and write no less than 50 things you're thankful for,
yeah,
50. Like,
yeah.
from, I am, healthy, I live in a house, I have a roof, I have running water, like, I live in the United States, it's like, or maybe that's not, but you know what I
Maybe
mean?
we might not.
You
Yeah,
live in a developed world,
yeah. I live in a
where
developed
where you
world. Yeah,
where you, we have access to be able to pursue your passions, and you're not, like, fighting to survive. Just starting to get to that gratitude just immediately. You cannot feel bad if you are in feeling gratitude. It just does not compute. One of the things I love to do is to have like a little thank you vault or a little feel good vault. So when you start to like question like, oh God, why am I doing this? Or maybe you have some challenging feedback from somebody in your community and you're just like, oh my God, maybe they're right. Maybe like this whole hair of the dog thing is terrible and it's not helping anyone and it's awful and I should shut it all down. I can like read like, oh wait, here are my students that have had this amazing success. Here's like people that have reached out and said thank you so much. Like it's just allows you to be like, no, 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 focus on this because
yeah.
where we choose to focus is what we're going to continue to create.
And it's so easy to just let one person's bad comment
Mm-hmm.
just negate all the good stuff. Like, I had that
Right.
last week where I had somebody made a snarky comment on one of my mentoring posts, and I was like,
Yep.
"Should I
It
still
can send
do
you in a
these?"
tail.
Like,
Yeah. Right.
you know,
Right.
like like, what like is she right? Is this, did I do something wrong here? And all the other comments were, oh my gosh, I totally agree. This is so helpful. I feel so inspired. And that one little
Mhm.
poisonous thing can just, make you want to throw all the rest away. And so, I just deleted it and then everything was fine in the world again.
Oh,
Uh,
I get
let's
it,
go
I
back
get
to a
it.
happy place. But,
Yes,
a
and
lot of that
also
comes down to choices. We have choices
yeah,
about how we think, somewhat have choices over how we feel. I think the what we think dictates a lot of how we
mhm,
feel, and I feel
mhm,
like that's the journey I'm on personally with this horse trainer, and really kind of rethinking horse training, and then taking a lot of those same ideas of like, like I can control my thoughts and feelings into my photography business too. And I just think it's all going to be better. And now I kind of feel like I
yeah.
need to apologize to my older horse who didn't get this, you know,
Aw.
this version of me until now. But I'm excited because I have a young horse and I get to shape her however I want. And I
Yeah,
feel like this slightly more, it's more than slightly, but I feel like it's a more enlightened horsemanship is going to just, she's going to be the greatest beneficiary of it.
right, absolutely. Oh my gosh. I love this so much, and, back to I just have to throw it in for the Facebook groups. Yeah, when we moved to Circle for our paid communities, we also have a free community, hairofthedogacademy.com/community, you can join us. In the past year and a half, I think, that we moved, there has been exactly 0 fires, fights, having to kick people out, or any sort of, like, management of poor behavior because I think because you're not on that platform, like, because I think people, like, they're scrolling on Facebook maybe, and they're seeing all this divisive stuff, and they're just getting, like they're, like, getting ready to fight, and then, like, something pops up and, like, "Oh, I don't know, mirrorless or DSLR," like, I have very strong opinions about this," because they just, like, have all this pent up anger from this just other superfluous stuff that just happens on social media, whether it's conscious or not. So I think now people go in the community, they're going to like, hey, we're going to talk about pet photography. And they're choosing to be there, and we're not distracted about the 8,000 other things. So
Interesting.
100%. I love it. Highly
Yeah.
recommend it.
Well, and what I'm finding is that more and more people are just not on Facebook anymore because of
Yeah.
all that other
Hmm.
stuff, and so it's like, yeah, like how do you create like a little happy garden in another place that people actually want to
Exactly.
go to?
Yep.
And 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 I think one of the reasons your off Facebook community works is the emails, the summary emails that
Yep.
go out. So you don't feel like you have another thing to check necessarily that
Right.
you forget to check. It's like, oh, look, there's some really interesting topics. I'm gonna go take a peek.
Yep. Absolutely. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, this has been such a good conversation. We could go all day,
I
but
know we could. Yeah.
we'll spare you guys and just do
Oh,
another podcast soon.
yes.
But Shelley, again, thank you so much. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about video or equine photography or just want to gawk at some beautiful horse photography?
The gawking can be done on my primary website, which is shelleypaulson.com, and Shelley's with an EY and Paulson's with an ON. I also have an education program, and that's at shelleypaulsoneducation.com. I have some online courses, some mentorships, some free stuff, and soon I will have an app. Maybe by the time
That's exciting.
yeah, by the time this plays, hopefully, it's actually a bit of a process getting into the Apple Store and the Google Play Store. And
Oh,
that's the
I've
only
heard.
hang up.
Yeah.
The app's ready to go. Just, yeah, but it's really designed to just help equestrian photographers, especially at sessions. There's a lot of great tools and tips and tricks and camera settings and the whole nine yards. So I'm excited to get it out into the world and help people.
Awesome. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Shelly. And you guys go check it out. Let Shelly know how much you appreciated this conversation. And I'll talk to you guys soon. See you next week.